Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Augusta Township Council meeting, August 11th, 2025 at 5 p.m. And I'll call the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement. Deputy Mayor, please.
Augusta Township acknowledges that we live and work on ancestral territories of Indigenous people. The township recognizes all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. The township values and respects their cultural heritages and relationship to the land.
Thank you. Next is the mayor's remarks. And first of all, I want to thank the deputy mayor for holding the last council meeting. Thank you. Watched it afterwards, but I wasn't able to partake. Leads into my next note. For those that don't know, I had a full knee replacement and the CAO had a partial knee replacement. And I had 20 years on him. So and see us squirming in our seats. We're not under pressure or stress. It's just that we got to keep moving our knee around. Right. So do we find a good place, a happy place for our knee? So anyway, it's not fun. I mean, it had to be done. And we're going to benefit in the future from it. But all you think of is when you're off is just getting better, and it's hard to focus on anything. So, plus the drugs don't help. So anyway, we both have good drugs, so we're coming up with now. So.
Don't on them anymore.
But anyway, we did, my clerk tells me there was a call from Tim Hortons, and they were kind of asking why their donut sales went down for the month of July. She politely said, well, it's, a lot of people on holidays. No names were mentioned.
I did get a few requests from staff about, having a shortage of donuts.
Okay, next, I attended the Port of Johnstown groundbreaking for V6 economy. Anyway, I hobbled around there. It was good. And it was good for of course, our resident, Brian Brophy. So, no, I see a lot of good things. The plan is to put up 3 buildings. They're gonna start with 1 right now. But, anyway, it was a good day for them. And I think everybody's seen it in the papers. Next is quarterly. Willow has sent out a reminder that anybody wants anything in the quarterly to do by the 15th. So, get it in. That's the counselors and all the staff too. So she puts a lot of time into it. So, it's, I had to question her. Of course, last time I didn't get anything in my mailbox, which I was so I asked my daughter. She did. So I said, okay, it's just me then, or the postmaster doesn't like me. So, we went this morning, myself, deputy mayor, and Councillor Pate went to the North Grenville and South Grenville combined MPP breakfast. It was good. It was held in the catering affairs in Kempville. And no, it's a nice location, nice little room they added in. The MP and the MPP answered a few questions, so it's a good little couple hours. For those that care about me, I did not get a moose tag. So therefore, on the second draw, I don't know what's happening. When I see the minister, hopefully next week, I'm gonna ask him what's going on, because this is the 4th year in a row. And it seems I'm not the only one. The quotas are the same, but they're just not. Something going on with the mooses. I want to thank staff, and I guess the CAO does too, because they both gave us a little, welcoming gift, a get better gift, you might say. So thank you very much. For those that aren't here, I'm sure they'll watch this, but thank you very much for thinking of both of us. So there's no donuts. Well, maybe that's what it's for, yeah. Buy donuts. So thank you. Next, the room is a little bit brighter in here tonight. So the walls have been painted, I believe. Yeah, so I know the CAO's got some pictures to hang up when he's healthy. But Now it looks better, better than the lime green or whatever. So you have to change with the times. That's about all I have right now for my remarks, and we'll carry on with the agenda. The first thing is moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Bowman, be resolved that council agenda for Monday, August 11th, 2025 be adopted. Does anybody have any additions or anything to add? Okay, I see nothing. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Here. Does anybody have any disclosure of interest and nature thereof? Okay, I see no hands or anything. Next, the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Henry, be resolved that council approve the minutes of the July 14th, 2025 council meeting as distributed but to all members. Is there any corrections, anything to review in those minutes? See nothing, no hands, okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Yeah. Next, we have business arising from the minutes. Does anybody have anything to bring forward? Okay, see nothing. Delegations and presentations. And tonight, I believe we have, am I correct? Yeah, okay. Jamie from MNP. We started to say that. So, Jamie, come on up and give us the lowdown.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, administration. Most people know who I am. I'm Jamie Pollock from MNP. I'm a partner and chartered professional accountant, and I'm here to go through your 2024 financial highlights. I believe in your package, what I'd like to focus on is a one-page summary for your analysis of your operating surplus for the year end of 2024.
That would be page 20.
And I try to summarize your whole financial statements onto one page. So if there's any questions or concerns, or if I skip over anything, please stop me and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I'll just go right to this second last line or third last line in the report, and I'm going right to cut the chase right to what your financial results are for 2024. You ended up with a small deficit for the year of $65,082. That deficit was funded by a transfer from your working capital of $65,082 based on your tax bylaw rate and bylaw at the end of the year. So your operating surplus going into 2025 is nil. And that 65,000 only really comes from two items, and everything else kind of washes out. But if you look under financing and transfers, and they're connected, you'll see municipal debt, proceeds from long-term debt, about 5 lines up, $2.1 million. And it was something that you didn't budget for, but it was proceeds that you raised to help purchase land held for resale. The next line was the actual cost to purchase that land for resale, $2.21 million. So you have a difference of $32,136. When you took on that new debt, you end up making additional debt payments in the year of both principal and interest. So you just go up 2 lines, you'll see municipal debt repayments for the year. The middle column, $176,000 made in the year, but you only budget $143. Excess of $33,000. Well, you add those two numbers together of the 33 and the 32, there's your deficit for the year of $65,082. It's just something that happened after you planned past your budget. It was approved by council, and this is where you ended up. So if we go through the remaining part of the plan, so highlights here, you will be over on some, but you were under on some, and if you were short, you had reserves, and you had extra, you spent it in other places. So if you look at the top part in the middle column, total revenue raised was just over 7.9 million. And you had an overage to the good of only 4,076 compared to budget. So you basically brought in the revenue that you expected for the year. There was less supplementary taxation than budgeted for taxation, but you had higher user fees collected across all departments. You had higher interest charges on taxes and interest income, but you received less proceeds on sale of land and equipment. That was less than budgeted, but overall, it nets out to $4,000 plus for the township. Under expenditures, total $6.7 million compared to $6.9 million, a savings of 3%. For the municipality of $208,569. Well, you might have some mortgages in general government, and some of it was due to additional interest paid on long-term debt for some bad debts and computer expenses that had to be incurred. That excess was offset by savings and protections to person and property by $48,800. You had savings and transportation services of $183,000, which was under savings for vehicle repairs and maintenance, winter control costs and insurance. Recreation and cultural services, you might have some additional transfers to the recreation associations, but you had savings in wages and benefits. And then plan and development had savings due to consulting work that was not done by $94,000. So you had net revenue from operations of $212,000. But then when you look under the first line from reserves and reserve funds, yes, you transferred more. It looks like you transferred more, but actually you transferred less because you were going to use reserve to help pay for some of the plan and consulting work, which wasn't required. So the net change is 140,000, which offsets the 212. Transfer to capital fund, what you needed from operation dollars basically came in right in line with budget. So whatever you did with capital, you financed what you needed and used funds from reserve and reserve funds, but the amount of operating dollars, you were actually savings of $5,600. Overall, like I said, because of the additional debt take on and what you paid for that debt and the interest charges, the $65,082 overage is the deficit for the year, which was financed by your reserves, working capital reserve. So on a budget of almost $7 million, you just came over by $70,000 or 0.01%. So you came quite close into your budget expenditures for the year, and with all the other ins and outs, it just shows that there was good management of your finances throughout the year by your administration staff. So that is the overall highlight. Just going through the rest of the financial statements. If we go to maybe page, I'm just guessing page 23, but I don't have my calculator with me.
Yep,
so
page 23.
We have our independent auditors report that goes with the financial statement that I'm presented tonight. And it's addressed to the members of council, inhabitants, and ratepayers of the Corporation of Township of Augusta. Now just read the first two paragraphs. So we have audited the financial statements of the Corporation of the Township of Augusta, which comprise the consolidated statement of financial position as of December 31st, 2024, and the consolidated statements of operations, accumulated surplus, change in net debt, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the consolidated financial statement, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statement presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of the township as of December 31st, 2024, and the results of its operations, change in its net debt and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So it's a clean audit opinion, and that's what you want to hear from us as your auditors. The financial statements are in draft until you as council will accept them and approve them, and we are in a position to issue the audit opinions on the financial statements once approved by council, and is dated as of today's date, August 11th, 2025. When you look at the next page, page 25, the statement of financial position, this is your balance sheet. It is at a particular point in time at December 31st, 2024. You'll see your overall assets, financial assets, 5.2 million compared to 4.4 million, an overall increase of $715,000. You had a decrease in cash in the year from 2.5 to 1.3 of 1.1 million. And the decrease in cash is basically the use of your reserve and reserve funds to help pay for capital items in 2024. We also have land held for resale, which is property that you bought that you plan on to sell off for future development, and that amount is 2.2 million at December 31st. Liabilities, 8.3 million compared to 6.5 million, an increase of 1.8, and all of that is due to the increase in the municipal debt versus no 5. You have now 2 loans outstanding of 4.9 million, up from 2.9 million the previous year. Non-financial assets, which includes your tangible capital assets, you will see it's at 22.3 million compared to 20.5, an increase of almost $1.8 million. And that's where your capital expenditures goes and gets capitalized as part of tangible capital assets. So your accumulated surplus, when you include all of your infrastructure, which is your land, buildings, roadways, recreation buildings, it's 19.45 compared to 18.6 million, an increase of $790,000 or 4.2% overall increase from the previous year. So your overall accumulated surplus went up, which is positive to see. If you turn the page, the statement of financial activities, and it's similar to the first page we went through, but it includes other items like amortization expense. But if you go through the middle column, overall total revenue, 7.8 million. You're higher by budget by $58,000, which you budgeted $7.7 million. Expenses, 8.2 million, overage of only 25,000, and that's on amortization expense of 0.3%. And then you include other revenue for capital purposes. Your annual surplus, which is for accounting purposes, was 790,797. And that's the third line from the bottom, where you compare it to the line on the left-hand side, you're budgeted for 152,000. So you had excess of 638,000 of additional funds that you're able to utilize in 2024. If we turn the page to this statement of change in net debt, with your annual surplus of 790,000, we add back amortization expense, which is a non-cash item. We're just taking the cost of previous year's capital additions that you had and amortize over its useful life. We add that back, which was 1.5 million. Your acquisition of tangible capital assets was 3.3 million in the year, similar to the previous year, 3.1 million, but it's higher than budget of 2.6, and small changes. So your overall, you had an increase in net debt of $1,086,000. And most of that increase is due to the use of your cash or your reserves and reserve funds to help pay for capital items in 2024. If we kind of go to other parts of financial statements, if you go to maybe page 27, there should be your schedule of tangible capital assets by asset type.
29, page 29.
Look at the column, second column in from the right-hand side, you'll see your total cost is $43 million at the start of the year. Your additions was 3.3 million. Disposals of 515,000 for a closing cost base of 46,656. Accumulated amortization started the year at 23 million. Amortization is 1.5. Removal of assets that was fully amortized upon disposal, 515, which brings you to your net book value of 22,315,674. So I just want to let you know these assets are recorded for accounting purposes. They're recorded at historical cost. It's based on historical cost less accumulated amortization, so not necessarily represents the today's dollars replacing those assets or the fair market value is what was originally paid for over the years less accumulated amortization. When we look at your net book value of 22.3 million, that represents 48% of your cost base. And that's exactly where we like to see your net book value, that is about 50%, or if we prefer to be it higher, but when you do the same percentage from 2023, it was 47%. So you moved up 1%, that you got more useful life out of your capital assets. And one way to do that is to make sure your addition is always higher than your amortization expense. And that was accomplished in 2024 when your additions overall was 3.3 million and your amortization was only 1.5. So you're putting investment back into your infrastructure higher than they being depreciated. So you're carrying the future, extending the lives of your tangible capital assets by either renewing them or replacing them with quoted. And that's what we like to see, and this is what you have done. The next page is this, 2 pages after that, is the schedule of accumulated surplus. And it's broken down into 3 parts. You have your overall operating deficit of 2.3 million, which takes in the debt that was raised and your future after retirement obligations related to the landfill sites. And then the middle part is your reserves and reserve funds. Total balance is 2.1 million compared to 3.1 million, a decrease of $964,778 or 24%. And I'll go through that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, but you actually budgeted to use your reserves and reserve funds in the year, mainly for capital purposes. So the decrease is not unexpected. You were expected to utilize those funds mainly for capital and infrastructure purposes. Invested in tangible capital assets, 19.5 million for a total accumulated surplus of 19.5 when you take in your reserves and reserve fund, but overall it grew by $750,000 from the previous year. If we keep going through the financial statements, and if I go through page by page, we'll be here all night. Anyone wants to do that? So if we turn to maybe where it starts at note 3, deferred revenue.
Page 39.
So in this help kind of explain where some of your cash was utilized. So deferred revenue represents funds that you receive from previous year but not yet spent, but you spent it in 2024. You had $100,000 from the EAF, the Enablement Accessibility Fund, which you utilized for recreation projects in 2024 of $100,000. Note 4, deferred revenue is your obligatory reserve funds. The CCBF one is your former gas tax funds, and you utilize $326,000 of those funds in 2024 for your road work. So it's funds that you carried forward from previous year of 90,000, you received 235,000, and you utilize the full balance in 2024 for your road capital projects. If we turn to page 30, note 5 is the municipal debt. Now you have 2 debts taken on. One was used for the Maitland Fire Hall the previous year. The balance now is 2.7, and then the new debt held for land held for resale is 2.1 million with terms and payment dues over the next 5 years. If we turn to note 7, the operating surplus, the middle column, and it kind of balances where we get from the statement of financial position and the statement of financial activities, which is prepared for public sector accounting standards or PSAS purposes, and kind of gets you back to the balanced budget that you had at the start of the year on the left-hand side, and to the current year deficit that we just talked about at 65,082. And I just wanted to show about 5 lines in the bottom. Reserves and reserve funds transfer for tangible capital assets. You budgeted to use 1.4 and you used $1.2 million to cover off your capital. And that is why your reserves is down. And this is why your cash is down. But you budgeted for that, and then it flows into the overall operating surplus, that everything that you manage for your capital with your operating dollars or debt or reserves, it came in quite balanced in the year, but you did pull down your reserves and reserve funds, which is not a bad thing. And I'll explain that you're actually in very good financial position still, regardless that you pulled down your reserves of $1.2 million in the year. If you go to note 10, you will see the further breakdown of your reserves and reserve funds. And mainly your operating reserves, the little bit left by 90,000 at 1.2 million compared to 1.3 million, which most of the reserves was used for working capital. But your reserves set aside for capital purposes went down by almost $900,000 from 1.8 to 925,000. And most of that was the drawdown from the administration equipment. And of course, from the fire building and fire vehicles and equipment reserves that budgeted to help use to pay for the tanker that was purchased in the year. Also, when it comes to capital purposes and for accounting, the pumper truck that you bought last year gets capitalized in 2024 only because you took delivery of it in 2024. So that's part of the additional capital. If you think, well, the assets seem much higher than we budgeted for, well, what you budgeted for 23 for the pumper came in 2024, so it gets capitalized in 24, and it's an accounting terminology and accounting process that we need to follow. If you go to the 5-year financial review,
Page 46.
Probably 2/3 down, you see the annual surplus over the last 5 years. From 2020 went 369. You had some 2 years of deficits under PSAS. In the last 2 years, we had surpluses under PSAS. The next is the property taxes billed. So you see the taxes billed in 2020, which includes the upper tier and the school board's portion, went just from over 10 million to 11.5 million, or an annualized increase of 3.1%. And then if you kind of go over to the next page based on your taxable assessment, both residential and commercial, in 2020 went from 834 million to 851 million, and that only grew, on an annualized basis of 0.4%. So your taxable assessment is not growing with the rate of inflation, so that your taxable taxes that's coming in is from the increase in your tax rate that will look under your municipal residential tax rate. This past year was 0.7102%, where 5 years ago it was 0.61%, and that's an annualized increase of 3.2%. So unfortunately, with your taxable assessment growing very slowly, to help pay for expenses, your tax rate is going up to raise those tax revenue to pay for the expenditures. And when you look at kind of the standard rate of inflation over 5 years, and I know it kind of went up and down, it usually rides at between 3 and 4%. When we look under the financial indicators, tax arrears, we always like to raise that as a concern and make sure council administration is aware, but your overall taxes outstanding on your own tax levy is 16%, which held steady from last year and lower from previous years. The total levy, the same at 8%. Your financial assets to liabilities under sustainability, 0.62. We always like to see it kind of higher when 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, but still it remains stable, and that's just due to the amount of debt in percentage to your financial assets. But if we go down to falling ability, and this is not a surprise if you keep hearing the amount of grants that you're receiving, and this is across every municipality, it's as a percentage of total operating revenue or total grants to total revenue has been decreasing the last couple years. And that's just an indication of the environment that you in, that there's less federal and provincial grants available to be utilized for operating purposes. The last part is the reserve coverage. Your total reserve 2.1 million compared to 3.1 million, and the amount of reserves to operating expenses is 26%. We always like to see that be in a range of 25 to 50%. So you're still within the range, but on the low end. When you look at your working capital reserve, 787 compared to 887, so that did go down, that's utilized for some operating purposes. But then the working capital reserve to operating expenses is 9.54%. We always like to see that between, 10 and 15%, so you're just on the outskirt of that ratio, where 3 years ago you were at 18%. But your reserves to working capital, 1.01, so at least what you have set aside for reserves, you have the same amount set aside in your working capital. And when I say working capital, in this case, it's your assets, cash, plus taxes receivable, accounts receivable, less accounts payable. So you're a little bit on the low end with reserves, but you budgeted to use those reserves for, your infrastructure projects, this past, mainly with the fire department and roads. So you're a little bit low, but I'm not concerned, and even showing the amount of reserves you have as a percentage of operating expenses of at least 25%, you're still in good financial shape because of that. And I've never been concerned to see reserves being used for infrastructure projects that you put back into your community, like you did with the fire department and your roads and roadways. The only time that I'd be concerned if you'll be using reserves just to fund daily operations, or you're budgeting for a deficit every year and you just pull down the reserves to offset that, then I'll be concerned, because then you have more of a bigger problem in managing your operating costs. But when you pull down your reserves and reserve funds, which you have built up over the few years before that, at least they were put into, I'll say, good use, for the township as a whole. So those are the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2024. Only have one little bit to finish, and it's in the audit findings report. If you go to the second last page in the report, or third last page, and it's our management recommendation letter. And
That'd be page 17 in the addendum.
And it's just items that I did bring up with your administration during the course of the audit, and it's just some rooms for improvement. One is more of a accounting procedure that should be done. It's under Ontario Regulation 28409. We do have budgeted amortization in your financial statements, but it really should be approved and prepared by administration at the start of your budget process. They're aware of this, and it would likely be addressed in the next budget round that occurs. There's some library bank deposits, which we thought could have used some more detailed information on that, and we're just bringing it to their attention, just to make sure there's better financial recording of that information in the financial records. And then we always like to bring up recommendations from prior years and see what your administration has dealt with our recommendations, so that you're aware of what the status are. So one, with taxes receivable, we wanted them to be lower. They kind of stayed the same. Administration addressed the issue of conducted monthly reconciliation between the general ledger and sub-ledger account. The taxes receivable balance did go up by 6%, while the tax revenues went up by 8% from the previous year. That's satisfactory, but they are going up, which still need to be monitored. And taxes and related interest charges for 2 years or more still comprise of 30% of the overall taxes receivable balance at December 31st, 2024. So we recommend administration address those older balances and see if collections can be made on those balances. And anything that's over 2 years technically could be registered at that point, or go through the process of being registered. Reserve funds and restricted assets. The reserve funds should be set aside by the same amount of cash in the bank accounts. And the difference at the end of 2024 was only $14,300, where the previous year was $98,000. Your administration has dealt with that in 2024. We recommend that a reserve and reserve fund policy be developed for the township, and it's our understanding the administration is addressing this issue in 2025. User restriction on accounting software. It is our opinion that there should be tighter user restrictions on the different accounting software that's being used, and our understanding administration is addressing this issue in 25 as well. Tangible capital assets, they are recorded. When we first came on, recorded in your citywide software, but not in your accounting software. At least at the start of the audit, it was recorded in your accounting software. But unfortunately, not everything got updated in your citywide software in 2024. So we just recommended that you just finish through that process and make sure they're both reconciled maybe by the end of 2025 fiscal year end. But administration is addressing it concurrently as we go through the 25 fiscal year. We recommended a different process for the accounting for library boards transactions, which is being dealt with and has been dealt with by administration. So that's where we are with your management recommendation letter and issues that should still be addressed by your administration staff. So overall, you had a small deficit for the year of $65,082. Your net financial assets is quite healthy at $5.2 million. You still carry on some net debt, but that net debt is offset by your land held for resale, and you're still in good financial shape. And we're prepared to issue a clean audit opinion on those financial statements to be issued by your administration staff for your year ended December 31st, 2024.
Thank you, Danny, for the explanations. Council, do you have any questions? Go ahead.
No questions, but statement, very, very good report, and thank you for that. And also a shout out to our treasurer, Steve Lund, and deputy treasurer, Ann Shorty, for all the work they put into this.
Okay, I just had a couple here, but I think you cleaned them up as you went through it. You mentioned on page 20, we had a $65,000 deficit, but on page 46, under the 5-year financial review, it shows surplus and deficit, shows a surplus of 500,000. I'm just looking at the last 5 years. So I think I know the answer, but I'm asking my colleagues, what's the difference?
So on their 5-year financial review, it's based on the amount reported in the financial statements that need to be reported for public sector accounting standard boards. So PSAS don't differentiate between what's your operating fund, your capital fund, and your reserve and reserve funds. So they kind of exclude that, and then they want to take in items like amortization. So that 507,000 is what's reported for PSAS purposes. So it doesn't line up with $65,000. So it doesn't include items like transfers in that you would have used to help pay for capital or pay for operating, but it includes amortization. So that's why that 5-year review was like that.
Okay, any questions? You mentioned 30% taxes owing over 2 years, and then you just summed it up a few minutes ago. Yeah, we have to wait till that 2-year period is done before we can take action. That's the only problem with that.
That's correct.
That's a government system thing, so. And other than that, no, I think you've explained all my questions I had, so. Treasurer of the CA, have any questions at all?
I think just 2 comments from myself is I think 2 of the items that Jamie talked about in his management letter is during our budget this year, we did have a lengthy conversation in regards to our reserve funds. And I think we addressed that in this year's budget to look at increasing our reserve funds. Right now, we're sitting at the 26%, but I think this council would like to be around the 35%. So I think we're working towards that. And then, as Jamie mentioned, in regards to the tax arrears, Ann's been very aggressive and Steve in tax sales this year. So I would foresee that number will drop considerably for our December 31st, 2025 financial statements. And then the last comment is I'll thank Jamie and his staff as well too for the audit, and as well as our finance staff for a great job as well.
Okay, yep, Treasurer.
I was gonna thank Jamie and his team for coming in and helping us this year. And taking what can be an uncomfortable process and making it comfortable is very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you very much on behalf of council, Jamie. No, it was good report. And I have to thank we certainly thank our finance department, CAO, so everybody's doing a great job, so. We know where our problems lie. It's not within our administration, our finance. It's our revenue streams, which we gotta get up. And we've been trying, but anyway, I won't say any more about that, but yeah, we know we gotta work on that. So again, if there's not any more questions, thank you very much.
And I'd like to say thank you very much for having me tonight, and I'd like to say big thanks out to Danny, Steve, and Ann, and Lindsay for all their cooperation during the audit, and I was talking with Shannon earlier, we're 1 month ahead from last year, and hopefully we might be again next year. So we're slowly getting up to the time frame, but it's a work in process when there's a change in auditors, but we enjoy working with them, and that's about my staff as well, and enjoy working with you for next year.
Great, well, thank you for coming. Okay. Ladies.
Thanks, JB.
I'm
Bye-bye.
using my stuff out.
All right, take care. Safe travels.
So next we have correspondence and petitions, and we have a letter from NMP, excuse me, reference the 5th annual MMP Eastern Ontario Charity Golf. And naturally, they're looking for support. So we do have the letter here. The sponsor, I guess. I have to, first question I'll ask is, did we give anything last year?
No, this was through you, Mayor, this was the first request from MMP. They've held this golf tournament for 5 years in Rockville. All the proceeds go to the local food banks, and Jamie has provided me the letter to bring to council.
Okay, comments, council? Yes,
Well, I think in our sponsorship money, we are under, so I would suggest that we do one of the sponsorship levels. Maybe a $300 hole in one or something,
any other,
whichever.
yeah, any other comments? Sorry, what did we do last year? No,
So we didn't do
we
anything
didn't do
last
it
year.
last year.
I think moving forward, as Lindsay's brought the report, I think a number of meetings ago, is the grants and donations, now that we have a new process. So we would expect that for something for next year, if it does come through, that it will follow our application process.
Okay, so. Yeah, because it's September 5th. It's not a couple of weeks away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess the other question is, what do we still have left? I don't think we've had a lot of requests this year.
No, so through you, Mayor, so we had our regular $6,000.
Yeah.
We might have probably spent about $1,000 of that so far this year. With we had the event at the jam,
Yeah, the cabin fever.
yeah, we had some money set aside for the figure skating. And there's something else I'm missing. So we might be at $1,000 of the 6,000 that we spent so far today.
So what's the intention? I'm getting different mixed signals here in council. Do we wanna just make note of it? Put it on our list for next year or give something now? Yeah,
I mean, I think, we have the money to do it in our donation amount. So I mean, I think we decide on something that we can do this year and then just set the expectation that next year that the process is followed. I'm open for discussion. I mean, if we have enough, why we do Adrian suggested 300. I mean, I see a lot of different options here, so whatever everybody thinks is best.
yes,
Your worship, I would agree with one of the whole sponsors for 300.
anybody else?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, I think the clerk is. So moved by Deputy Mayor Winans, seconded by Councillor Pay, be resolved to approve the sponsorship of 5th annual MNP, Eastern Ontario Charity Golf Tournament, amount of $300. Ask a question, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next we have committee reports. And first of all, United Counties. Yeah, United Counties, they put in, actually, I forgot. They had 5 applications in for ministers at AMO. And to my knowledge, they've only gotten 3. That's all I've seen come by my emails. One, the Minister of Finance, reference MPAC. Next one is the Attorney General, reference the POA. And then the other one is the Ministry of Health, reference VTAC. So to my knowledge, there's only 3 the counties is doing. So and that's about it. We had a county's council meeting. I didn't attend. I attended by Zoom. But it was mostly the county's council meetings are mostly just that period confirming and doing the bylaws sort of thing. So. Okay, next we have South Nation Conservation Authority and the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, which have been busy over the last month, so. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, well, I was on holidays for the last 3 weeks, but I was on a Zoom call with South Nation, and earlier they declared a level 1 low water response, and now they've gone to a level 2. So Rideau Valley is at a level 1.
Anything else? No? Okay, recreation committees, did any members have meetings? Yes.
For your worship, I was unable to go, but Kathleen went in my place, so some of the updates are, they're looking to do a murder mystery. The tentative date is set for November 8th or 15th, more details to follow. The kids' Halloween party tentative date is set for October 25th or 26th. The next MERC meeting is September 9th. Is there anything else, Kathleen? Didn't miss anything? That's all.
Okay, the library board? I'm sorry. Good.
If I can just add one thing under the Recreation Committee, just to give council an update on the North Augusta lights.
Okay, I didn't know we were doing it in the report or no, so go ahead.
I certainly do it now. So just let council know that we are hopefully this week in the midst of giving the go-ahead to have the lights and the poles ordered. The only issue I'm waiting on right now is the lighting schematics for the new pricing we got and whether or not the going from a 60-foot to a 50-foot pole would be feasible, because there is a savings of about $11,000 going from the 60 to the 50. I have sent out an email to Amy, who's here tonight too. So I want to make sure that if we're getting the LED lighting, that it's still the right amount of light that they need for that. So I'm just waiting for BDA to put the light schematic together for me. So our hope is that we'll be able to give the go-ahead this week to get the poles and the lights ordered under the $45,000 that council passed back in July or end of June. So yeah, so we are considerably less than the 45,000 based on the pricing right now. So
And we're just going to reach out to Brockville too to see what they have, what they use.
So I've got a call into Chad just to see what height they have for their baseball at the Memorial Field, as well as the full floored fields as well. And then also just looking at the specs of their lights as well too. So I want to make sure we're getting at least good lights that are going to last North Augusta for a long time as well too. And something that we can then, as we navigate to do the inside poles, that we can replicate as well too. So.
Okay. Okay, sorry, library board?
No meeting, but just to say that, thanks to Councillor Payne, I know everybody else was busy and some of us were laid up, but, we went to the retirement party for Fran Wright. She retired from being the library, president, and, it was very well attended from 1 to 3. Good turnout.
Good. Economic Development Tourism Advisory Committee?
Yeah, a couple updates. So we had our midsummer market, a few weeks ago now, right here in Maynard. It would have been a lot nicer if the ice would have been in because it was really hot that day. We only had 4 vendors show up, but everybody was intrigued. They loved the idea. It was short notice, and that was kind of understanding. From the time that we announced it to the time that happened, it was about a month. Pickleball tournament was busy. How they managed to play and not pass out from that heat, it's still mind blowing. But yeah, it was all the vendors that we had were keen on doing something again next year. Wasn't a very strong consensus on doing it with the pickleball again, but we'll get feedback from them to kind of make a plan for next year. Then the only other update I have is a reminder that the voting, or the nomination period is open right now for the awards. So definitely keep spreading the word. From what I understand, at the beginning of the meeting, I was told we have yet to receive a nomination. And considering we have 5 categories, I'd really like to see, I just saw one actually from Northern Ontario that had theirs, and they had, I think, 4 or 5 nominees in about 8 different categories. So I think, we can do, and this is a community about the same size as ours. So I think we have a lot of businesses, a lot of people in the township that I think make a difference, and I would like to see those people get recognized. I think it's every year I find more people. I didn't know you were from Augusta either. So let's get the word out there. Let's get some nominations in and recognize some businesses and business people. That's all I got.
No, I think Willow's been doing a great job putting it on social media, and could be the time of the year, it could be the heat,
Yeah.
But
They have till October.
hopefully it'll just pick up in September, but I still think you can't leave it all social media. I still think you gotta get out there. Even as counselors, just nudge people and say, what about this person? What about that? They deserve a thank you, that's all. Okay, Planning Advisory Committee. Deputy Mayor, there was nothing, I don't think.
Well, if there was, I'll pass it over. I couldn't make the last meeting.
We had a small summer meeting last Wednesday. The committee did review 2 severances on Blue Church Road, and they're on council's agenda this evening. The committee did receive the new terms of reference for the committee as well. The next meeting will be September 3rd, and we're expecting at least 3 severance applications for that meeting.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have staff reports moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Bowman. Be resolved, the council received the Parks and Recreation Facilities Department's quarterly activity report for information. So, comments, questions, all that good stuff?
Good report, lots of information, what's happened.
Yeah, go ahead. Are you doing the action report right now too? On the lights and
No.
Wilma? Or is that later?
Shannon.
That's next.
Okay.
All right, if nobody's got any questions, I do. I looked at this on Saturday. I think it was North Augusta. Applications for accessibility grants for a new ramp being coordinated with North Augusta Recreation. So it's always been a little bit foggy in my mind, who applies for grants? And if the township applies for grants, then it's gotta go through us first. And I know it hasn't been in the past, but I think we decided about a year and a half ago, that's the way it should be. But if the Recreation Committee applies for a grant, then that's their thing. So where do we sit on that? I'm talking about the accessibility one. Yeah,
I'll bring it to council next meeting,
okay,
but
so
it's due the 14th.
You see the CAO, because we don't work on a time limit. If that grant is it's the way it is, so, because in the past, we've been caught, and we said, who authorized this grant? And, it's cost us some money.
It's not costing any money.
Kathleen, I appreciate that, but we've heard that before,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking recently, I'm talking in the past 2 or 3 years, okay, so. I just wanna know what our policy is, yeah.
So usually if it's a North Augusta, for example, is a committee of council, so
Yeah.
it has to flow through the township in order to apply. If it's a corporation, then the corporation has the ability to apply on their own behalf.
Exactly.
But I know, a lot of the, grants that Kathleen have been looking at, we've had some conversation on it, is that we're changing kind of how we look at grants moving forward, where in the past, it was always like the 75-25. We're looking for grants such as the Trillium and stuff like that, where it's 100% funded by the program. Just because, we look at the CCRF grant as an example, where we got the grant for 4 of them and it ended up costing us well over $500,000 in our own funding that was never budgeted for back in 2021. Exactly right. So, right, exactly right. So we are looking at changing that up, but certainly we can bring that back with the list of the programs that we've applied for.
And if there's something that's date sensitive.
Yep.
It's your job to get it to us.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
No, fair point.
Next was, at Maynard. Okay, so this is where, are we using that building or not using that building?
We're not using them.
So where are the washrooms?
We have 2 porta potties there
Yeah,
for this season.
yeah,
What we're looking at is putting the plumbing back in place for the winter so that we can operate a bathroom and accessible and also be able to flood the rink. We will get we will not replace the furnace. We will get a heater in there so that nothing freezes.
I guess where I'm thinking is having people in that building at all, because what I was
It's
told,
access from the inside.
Yes.
it was condemned, because of.
So the bathroom is accessible from the outside, so they do not actually do not go into the building at all.
Alright, so that's my question.
Yes, yeah, but certainly I think the discussion on Maynard is a bigger discussion that we need to have down the road. Because as we were not successful under the recreation grant to fund a new building, we need to do something more long-term with Maynard, and how that looks like will be a discussion we need to have probably in the fall with council on kind of next steps, because for Maynard to grow and offer the services they have there, they need some sort of a facility that they can, have meetings, have events, create some revenue that they can kind of put back into it. So, but certainly that was something we'll bring back in the fall.
No, totally agree. I thought they would start that soon, like maybe a fundraising event. Now I read in the Beacon, I could be absolutely wrong. There was 1,100 participants in the,
No,
you remember?
this year. I think they had quite a bit last year. This year, their numbers are down because there was a larger tournament in Ottawa. So they had, I think it was only about, Brian said about 1,200 or 120 or so.
Yeah, Kathleen.
Through your worship, they had 100 participants
Good.
this year. They have started putting money aside. They are more than willing to do fundraising. Shannon and I have to meet because we want to have a plan, a policy in place for sponsorship. We can't expect our volunteers to go out without any guidance. And that's why Shannon and I need to prepare something, but they are more than eager to participate and do their share in fundraising.
No, that's good. It's, like I said, I was eager to get rid of the building. And that kind of forces everybody,
Yeah.
For the same direction. But, anyway, we'll go through another season, yeah.
Through your worship. So I do have money in their budget for this year and I'm looking at getting them a warming shed to get them through the winter and for other events. The warming shed that they had last year was used regularly. Unfortunately, it came back here because it's needed back at the office. And it can't be moved again. It's on its last legs. So I'm looking at getting a shed for Maynard and I'll get assistance from, I'm looking at possibly getting an Amish shed at a good price. So they'll have something to get them through the winter.
Or even a donation. I know easier said than done, but
Very easy to say.
there's a big one at Hyundai that worked quite well. Okay, was. Summer day camps. Even though they're not over, can you give us an update on the summer day camps, how they're going?
Summer day camps are going very well. We originally started with 3 returning students, university students. We have since hired another individual that's going off to university next year. And we also hired a new supervisor. The new supervisor is a public health nurse, and she is very capable. She's running a very, very good show this year. I think feedback that I have received is that they would like to see perhaps maybe a counselor show up to see what they're doing, or a mayor, or some interest shown that, for support, that, that they're working hard through this summer with many challenges that they've had. So if anybody could stop by and say, hey, good, and thank you, and, we're very supportive of you, that would be very much appreciated.
That's pointed out in their orientation, you can direct them. Counselors, you know that. The next little one was, there will be no PA winter break camps for 25-26. Did we have them last year?
Yes, we did,
And why do we not have them this year?
because I don't have anybody to cover them, and they are not a moneymaker. They are more work than what we bring in.
And how many years did we have them?
One,
Remember? 1 year?
just last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, just from a budgeting perspective, Kathleen's point is, if we have one student, we can only have a maximum of 10. So a 1-to-10 ratio. So if we want to have a bigger class, then it's going to have more costs on our wages, and it just wasn't anything that was profitable for us to do moving forward. So we kind of got rid of the PD camp, so.
I brought that forward for my colleagues in case they get some pushback, but,
Yeah.
because when you have something and then you take it away. I think that could have been communicated to us before, but seeing was the summer.
Yeah.
Before we made a decision on that, but, because, yeah, you're saying it's a financial, but we make the financial decisions. So, yeah.
And I think finding a student, because all your university students are gone away, right? So finding.
Well, I think a staff member.
Right, so finding somebody, but that you're only allowed the 1-to-10 ratio,
Yeah,
that's the problem, right? So, like, we can certainly have 30 people if council wants to hire 3 staff members to do it. But the cost is gonna just outweigh what we provide, right? So there's a lot to it.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Could you remind me what the hours of the day camp are in summer?
For the
Like right
summer
now,
day
yeah.
camp, they go from 8 to 5:15.
Okay, thank you.
Well, 5 and pick up.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, good report. We had to go through it thoroughly because anyway, there's little things that pop up. Okay, if there's no other questions, I call the question. All in favor? Carry. Yes. Next, we have report 2025-084. And moved by Council Bowman, second by Council Henry, be resolved that council approve the quote attached to staff report 2025-084 in the amount of $2,714.20 from BD Nuclear Electrical Incorporated to perform pole testing and inspection of 6 ball field lights poles and confirm electrical status of the 6 poles. Okay, comments? Questions? Okay, Deputy Mayor, then Council.
Okay, I'm wondering why we go to Duke Electric when, if they don't pack the poles, we'll be in the same situation we were in North Augusta. If Roebuck and Donville don't want their poles taken down, then we're gonna have to hire an engineer. So why don't we just go right away, either hire the engineer we had from Brockville or the one that North Augusta had, and get a quote from them and see what the price is, rather than waste $2,100 and then still have to get them tested afterwards, because BD Duclos, they're not engineers.
Yes.
Yeah, if I can, certainly you're right on, Deputy Mayor. They're not engineers and in my conversation with the previous engineer we had for North Augusta, they will actually do a lot of this field work themselves. But if BD Duclos can do that, it saves them having to go and rent the platform to get up on the lights and stuff like that. So there's probably, you're gonna pay BD, you're gonna probably pay for an engineer to do all that work as well too. So we can certainly bypass and go right to the engineer, but they're gonna have to do all this field work anyways.
But according to the engineer, the BD Duclos didn't even do a proper testing.
That's based on one engineer. The other engineer that we hired said that the report that BD Duclos did was an excellent job. I'm not gonna get in the middle of who said what, but from our engineer is that all that work was done was stuff that they would have had to have done anyways if they were doing an engineer report. So it's certainly up to council.
So I was almost gonna say what Adrian said, just really with everything we went through in North Augusta, obviously, we don't want to repeat
Correct.
that again. I think it's a slightly different situation from what I understand from talking to members of the rec committee. But yeah, I mean, it's still the main concern. Do we know really what we're getting? Because I think I found that a lot of the information we got from BD was, I felt a little lacking,
Okay.
you know, and it just again, I don't know anything about testing poles. You know what I mean? So, I mean, some of the stuff that we gotta look at, a pole, yeah, it looks okay to me, but I just, again, I wanna make sure, for the sake of not having to repeat or spend more money on further testing, that we really rather just spend money once. You know, and then is there anybody, I don't know, it's just, I don't have any concerns with BD Duclos, just again, it's everything we have to in North Augusta. I just have this really strong thing in my head that keeps saying we're gonna repeat history all over again. I really don't wanna do that.
Yeah, and certainly, we can certainly explore the idea of going out to the engineer and asking them the cost of them doing it. They might hire somebody like BD Duclos to do the field work, like subcontracted anyways, or whatever, but certainly if council wants, we can look at getting a price of the engineer doing it from start to finish and giving the opinion. It will be probably more than the price that you have there right now, because they're gonna have to rent all the equipment, whereas I think BD has a lot of that equipment already. But that's certainly up to council, but from a staff perspective, we're not experts on it, that's why we need to go out. And I'll leave it at that.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, but I think what we were looking for too, for our asset management is what the position of the poles are now and when they should be replaced.
Absolutely.
So then we can work that in our asset management plan.
Yes, thank you.
So we're going to get a quote from the engineer as well as this quote, because BD Duclos has not done the work as of right now.
Nope, so.
Yeah.
If I can, if council would rather us go to the engineer and get a quote from the engineer to do the full report, including the on-site, we can certainly do that and bring that back to council if they wish.
So what happened with the other poles? Sorry, off topic, for say Maynard's or this robot. So are we having all those tested as well?
We We can certainly get a quote from an engineer to do all of them, which was at our May 24th council meeting. The issue at the May 24th was to look at Roebuck first, and then in the process, do the remaining lights. So that, if that's what council would like to do, we can get an engineer's estimate to do the rest of the lights in the township. But there'll be the on-site testing that they'll need to do as well too, so. We're probably looking at close to $10,000 probably to do them all, including the on-site.
And last comment, maybe, I think we need to be careful when we're speaking about businesses in the township, because they've done a lot of good work for the township and sit on our rec committees.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
And I know I said this the last time, it's really not our job to say who's right or who's wrong. It's concerning that it's $2,700 that we didn't have budgeted for. So we're gonna pull funds from somewhere else. So, and safety is top of mind, but then we get into the next situation of, what if Donville is the same way, you know what I mean? So it's like, it has to be done. Again, for safety, but again, I agree with Tanya. It's not our job to say what engineer's right, what's wrong,
Right.
type thing. That's my opinion. I feel very strongly about that, but it needs to be done and I don't know. Again, it's concerning that we have to take money that we don't really know if we have. And what's gonna happen if we take money from somewhere and then something else happens and that's the devil's advocate, right? And I get that.
Okay, my 2 cents is, I like what the CIO said first, is have BD Duco do it. Take lots of pictures. But, and then maybe see who comes out of that, hand it over to an engineer and let them, take a look at it too. But it saves them, the engineer, a lot of time because basically they're gonna do the same thing. They'll hire up BD Duco to go up, take a look at it, then they'll determine what they'll do. So any engineer would do that.
But maybe let BD Duclo know that that's what we're going to do, so that it doesn't turn out the way it did last time and make them look the way it did. In my opinion.
Yeah, I like that too.
So we're getting the feeling you. I'll call the question then. All in favor? 3 to 4 to 1. Carry. Yep. Next we have report 2025-085, semi-annual Augusta Fire Rescue activity. Moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Bowen, be resolved that council received Augustus Fire Rescue semi-annual activity report for information. And does anybody have any questions, comments? Chief, you want to say anything?
Through your worship, just briefly, our call volume looks like it's remaining steady, the same as last year. Our response times are slightly better than they were last year. Our financials, 6-month financial statement looks like we're going to be showing a slight surplus this year at the end of the year, but again, that's 6 months in. Don't take that as being gospel. Much can happen. But so far it looks like a small surplus, and our fire prevention has been very busy, as well as inspections. That was one of the things with the position with our municipal inspection officer. And the only last thing is I would like you to know is the social media. Our social media, Ashley, our admin, takes care of that. She does an amazing job with our social media. If you look at views, reach is, the total is 155,168. That's individual people. That's not someone looking at the same post 5 times. That's individual people. So for all of our posts that we did in the first 6 months, we had 155,168 people see them. So, I'm very, that's a big part of our social media and a big part of our outreach to our residents. So I'm, extremely happy that that's so strong. So that's all I have for council.
Question, yes.
And Rob, you're a little biased on the department, so I will definitely also add my kudos always. I mean, since you guys have been on social media, you guys have definitely been the leaders in this area, and so pass along my kudos on that. It's always you right out there, so leading the charge for all of Leeds and Grenville for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, call the question, all in favor? Carried. Yep. Next, we have moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Henry. A resolve that council receive the Protective Services Semi-Annual Activity Report for information. Same sort of format. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, a good report. Unfortunately, we're still having problems with our short-term rentals.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah. What's all under property standards?
Your worship, property standards ranges anything from someone complaining about the length of the neighbor's lawn to a car on the front lawn to fence falling down, that type of things.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Call the question, sorry.
If I may, your worship, I just want to add through your worship, the property standards also includes rental property standards. So there's times we get concerns brought forward to us for, rental properties. Their, landlord hasn't done something or something like that. So, and the only other thing I would like to bring up is just that our bylaw calls are, and I think I advised council this was going to happen because of the new bylaws we were putting in and stuff like that. Our calls for bylaw are up 33%. So Chad has been extremely busy doing bylaw and inspections for fire. So, and again, you'll see also we're showing a surplus. It's a large surplus this time for bylaw, percentage wise, not dollar wise, but you'll see that even further down the year. We don't have any claims in yet for livestock and that sort of stuff. And, it's pretty consistent what we get. So.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next we have the severance applications moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Bowman. Be resolved that council recommends that consent applications B-48-25 and B-49-25 be approved subject to 6 conditions of approval as detailed staff report 2025-087. Anybody have any comments on that? The property on Blue Church Road, I believe. Yeah. Melissa, did you want to say anything towards that?
No, not unless the council has any questions.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Yeah. Next week, moved by Deputy Mayor Wynan, second by Councillor Fay. Be resolved the council received the building department's monthly activity report for information. And does anybody have anything here? There's an awful lot of building going on in this township to drive around, especially garages.
Yeah.
Like everybody's putting them up. So Man, I know my daughter's house she's putting up one, and then the next week, another one started, and another one started, you know? And I look around and I don't know how many of them have building permits, but they're popping up. Okay, there's no questions, observations. I'll call the question, all in favor? Eric? So next we have, I move, sorry. Did I? Oh, sorry. That's we always miss that. Any notice of motions? Bring forward. I won't ask the CAO notice of motion I put in last month because he's doing some work on that.
We will have a report probably at the next meeting for council.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, where was I? Moved by Council Page, second by Deputy Mayor Winans. Be resolved that bylaw number 3792-2025 being a bylaw to provide for the participation of Augusta Fire Rescue in the United Counties Leeds Granville Mutual Aid Plan. Be read the first time, second time, the third time, and be enacted as read. Anybody have any questions? Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, really quickly, this is simply just an agreement that between the other municipalities of Leeds and Grenville that we will provide mutual aid to each other when requested, as long as it's a reciprocal ask. You know, as I have been the county fire coordinator for, I've been county fire for the last year or so. I found a number of outages. Our mutual aid plan has been updated since 2016, so I'm working on that. The problem is they're not updating the Ontario mutual aid plan until next year, so I got a delay. And so I'll be back with another agreement before you to sign next year. But all this is just so that we can, and the reason we're doing it is that this bylaw is supposed to be updated every 5 years. I did not know that. That is not well advertised. And again, if I found that while trying to update the county aid plan, and it's supposed to be updated every 5 years. It hasn't been updated in Augusta since 1957. So I felt it was a good time to maybe get a little bit short bylaw.
Okay, no questions. I call the question. All in favor? Good. Okay, next one, establishing committees of council and terms of reference. So moved by Deputy Mayor Winans, seconded by Councillor Pate, be it resolved that bylaw number 3793-25 being a bylaw to establish the committees of council and committee terms of reference for the Township of Augusta be read the first time, second time, third time, and be enacted as read. So looks like somebody put a lot of work into that. Any comments, questions? Yeah, that.
Yeah, just, we pass this as is. Does that mean for our committees, we'll have to follow that then, or would it be for our next term of council? So would we have to have elections for sheriff type of deal, or do we just carry on with what we have now and
So these would come into effect. Our thought as staff would be that when the next term of council starts, that's when council would review the terms of reference at that point. But because I believe all the terms of reference say the first meeting of the year, status quo would remain. So your committees would be the same, chairs, everything would stay the same.
Okay. Yeah, just a question of Melissa, you're sleeping, so anyway, your planning committee meeting last week, I apologize for not being there. But, who was the vice?
Glenn Mackey was appointed as the acting chair for the meeting.
Okay, but he's not officially the vice.
No, just for
Okay.
the meeting.
When I was reading through this, I said, okay, yeah, who is that? Okay, thank you. Anybody have any comments, questions? There's a lot of them. There's a reference.
It's good to have those.
It's good to have it, but it's hard to follow it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say common sense sometimes, but, you know, we put it down on paper for a reason, you know? Rental property standards, what I'm just looking at there now, so. No questions, comments? Okay, we'll call a question. All in favor? Carried. I guess we can review next year at this time, or before next year at this time, you know, spring. All right, announcements. Does anybody have an announcement? Yes.
Well, just, North Augusta Labor Day is coming up, so, we'll to get ready for that. I'm, committee working hard on it. The Amy is here tonight.
The theme is,
Canada. They be lots of flags in the parade. And, they've got, I think it's 4 bands, right, Amy?
Entertainment, yeah.
Yeah.
Through the weekend.
Partially because of Trump. They can't go to the States, so they're coming to, coming to North Augusta.
any other announcements? Yes.
Your worship, I attended the barbecue that Michael Barrett had in the town of Prescott last weekend. Barbecue all afternoon. I think there was probably close to 300 people showed up. It's really great.
It must have been hot.
It was very hot and very smelly like barbecue when I left there.
Okay, no other announcements? Okay. Questions on the agenda? Questions on agenda items for the public? Does anybody in the public have? Yes, Jeremy?
I hope you'll bear with me a bit because I looked at the agenda at 3:00. And so I haven't had a chance to really digest the whole thing, but I'll tell you, I saw so many red flags in the auditor's report. And the fact that the auditor stated they did not review internal controls sufficiently to express an opinion on their effectiveness and efficiencies. Yet even with the limited scope, they still found significant deficiencies. Now, I'll tell you, when I sat at this table, if an auditor came and with that kind of information, I'd be asking, have we got the right auditors? Because I'll tell you, I'm senior moment cannot remember the auditor's name from Smith Falls, but he came in early. And so we had a bit of a heads up mid-season so that we knew. I've come to council and said, we're on the wrong path here with finances. You better sharpen your pencil and stop spending when we don't have the revenue to cover any of these things. And then you go and borrow money. I will give the mayor credit. He was not in favor of this. Now, we had a 20% tax increase in the last 2 years. And we're in a $65,000 deficiency. This is, you have to get this together. I don't envy our new treasurer, that's for sure. He's got a big job ahead of him. We've had changes in staff. We have a new clerk. We've got a new treasurer. We have added staff and something's going badly wrong here. And I'd like to just see what path forward you do come up with. Let me see what I did make quick notes about here. The reserve fund. Now you had sat here tonight, how are we going to do this? Well, you know, I don't want to spend money. It's a safety issue. We have to do it. You keep your reserve funds up. You go to your reserve fund. It's an emergency. But when you allow your behavior for the last 3 years to deplete even further, And the facts are right here. 1.6 million in 2024 to 65,000. Come on. I'm not telling you to sharpen your pencils anymore. I'm telling staff as well. You're there, like the night I stood here and said, no, we can't afford to do this right now. Borrow more money after a 20% increase in our taxes, and no comment from the CAO to say, or had it been said before, I don't know. But to say we can't do, this is not a good thing to do. So I'm here as a taxpayer tonight, but I sat at the table for 8 years here as a counselor and a deputy brief. And I'll tell you, the way the finances are eroding and eroding and eroding. Now we have to be told, well, we're not keeping up with inflation. When the way we run our household and the inflation is up, you don't go spend, spend, spend. You tighten your little belt and pay your bills the best way you can. Thankfully, I'm able to. I had a retirement plan, but many of our senior citizens here, they don't have anything. They have CPP Ontario plan, which is minimal. They can't exist on it. They have to sell their homes to move into a place to live off the expenses of our inflated house prices right now. So I'm just here as once again, a very disappointed taxpayer.
No, and again, we take your comments. Just a couple of things. One is, yes, we've looked at our staff over the years, and I'm talking over the years, the last, many years. There wasn't that watchful eye over the finances, and a lot of things in the past are done by handshake too, which is not right. But we tried to put policies in place. We know this year, putting up the taxes, we all hated it, but we had no choice. Our revenue streams are right down. Like, we haven't got enough bloody residents in this township. And everybody looks at it and says, we got industry, but our revenue stream, and the main revenue stream we have comes from our homes and our taxes. But the big thing against that is MPAC has not raised their rates since 2016, which is good for the individual, the senior citizens and everybody else, but it hurts the municipality. Like, I don't know what, and I've said this in public before, I'll say it again, I said it on the mayor's minute, I don't know where we're going to be in 10 years. Because unless we build homes here, I don't think you'll have the revenue to support this community. And you'll have to look at going into a larger community or something, but this council here has taken the action. And I think they've learned a lot in the last little while on reserve funds. I know the deputy mayor and myself and the new treasurer have all sat in training for reserve funds and everything else. And I agree totally with you when you said, oh yeah, we need this, let's take it from reserve funds. That is a bad attitude. Only in certain instances can you do that. The audit itself, and MNP is a respectable, I don't know what to say, that's their job, they're probably the best in in Canada. I don't know where else to turn, and this is the second year from. So anyway, we know your concerns and we understand why the public is concerned too, but I've been trying to pass the word. Like I said, in my mayor's message, if you watch that on YouTube, I tried to explain better what's happening. But yeah, it's the revenue streams coming in. And it's very hard for this council basically to operate, Where do you make cuts? Do we cut our landfill stations? Do we cut some of our public works? It's a toss-up. But we don't want to get to that stage. You cut staff. We don't want to get to that stage. So we're putting things in place. And And we all know we won't be around, you know, if we do another high tax rate, you know, it's gonna. Public won't stand for it. That's why we, again, every month, the treasurer, the deputy mayor, myself, the CAO, and the finance staff sit down and we look at where we are. We've never done that before in this whole township. Never. At least not in the last 6 years. Not in the last 7 years.
That's not true.
That is true because I've been here. And I've never sat there.
You've been here for some years.
I've been here for 7 years.
Hasn't been that long. Time
Yeah.
flies when you're having
No,
fun.
I know. And, you know, I can just see anyway. I think we're going in the right direction. It's a matter of educating the people, the good staff we have. It's a matter of educating the counselors. And I think we hit kind of the all-time low when we had to do that tax hike, but I think things are on the right direction. We gotta push getting industry in, we gotta push getting homes in. And that's our only savior.
Could I make a comment?
Quick one, please. Yeah.
I did mark down some things that I thought needed to be done. A commission, a comprehensive internal audit. I can't imagine how that hasn't happened. That's something that should have been going on. And it might have prevented a lot of different things that have happened. An audit or operational review the next fiscal cycle. It's been suggested and I hope it happens. Provide a clear timeline and accountability framework for addressing the deficiencies. And you have to admit there have been deficiencies. Ensure future audits include a full review of internal controls. Like that's something else I think I heard a question asked during the meeting here, like, you know, who authorized that? Those are questions that shouldn't even have to be asked because you should know. Are you getting, as a council, the bank statements and expenditure at your council meeting? Way back, I came about that because it was a good indicator of where the money was going. And I don't know whether that happened or it's still happening. It used to be part of the minutes when I was on council, so the taxpayers saw where their money.
Yeah,
was
it's
going.
still happening. We get a quarterly review, you know, so.
I'm not talking about a quarterly review. I'm talking about a monthly statement.
Well, imagine the finance staff has something like that, but
Well, we have a new treasurer, so maybe you'll get a little more information so you won't be in over your head before you realize that exactly what's been happening.
yeah. And just on a fair note, remember, you know, I appreciate you've served on this council and everything else. You've got a great knowledge of things. But remember, times have changed tremendously. For example, asset management. Something entirely new to every municipality.
No, it isn't. I was part of the first asset management that we did at this council. That's not new. The
Well, maybe
reporting- the
term
reporting
new
has
to you,
changed.
but anyway, that's totally new. New parameters on that. You might have called it that back then. but-
And I followed it through this council too.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bore you with any more time. I'm just wanting to say what I've experienced. This has not been, all we see is eroding of our finances. You're saying the revenue is down, even though taxers like myself and many other senior citizens have seen them rise 20%. Okay? Inflation has not risen 20%. You're not keeping up with inflation? Excuse me. What are we at now? 3 or 4 or 5? It's the same thing happens when you go to the grocery store. They tell you, yeah, it's 3%, and you see something that's gone up double and sometimes triple. So I wanted to bring my feelings as an experienced counselor, and I know times have changed, but you have to change with the times. But that doesn't mean you expend more of my money than revenue that's being brought in. You get a proper balance. You'll have to find out what that is. That's why I'm asking you, come up with a plan. so that the taxpayers can see exactly how you're going to do this. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm giving you time because I do respect your time previously on council. But, you know, I think we do have a plan moving forward, and it's gonna take time.
Will you be publishing this plan so that we can have an
My
idea?
plan is simple, housing, industry. And what's the biggest stop we have right now? Tariffs. Everybody spent a whole lot on
I'm
everything.
sick of listening to that. Carol,
Well, I guess we are too, so.
97% or 93% of the tariffs haven't changed. They're all the same. The everyday tariffs.
All right, is anybody else? If not, I will, any questions from the press? I don't think we have any press on. No. And no closed meeting. And bylaw to confirm. Okay, moved by Councillor Pape, seconded by Deputy Mayor Winans, be resolved that bylaw number 37 North 94-2025 confirm the proceedings of council of the Township of Augusta at its meeting held on August 11, 2025. Be read first time, second time, or third time be enacted as read. Call question, all in favor? Carried. Yep. And moved by Deputy Mayor Winans, second by Councillor Pape, be resolved that this council meeting do now adjourn 6:41 PM until September 8, 2025 at 5 PM, or the call the mayor subject to needs. Call the question. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.